Ask anyone familiar with China's economy to name the strongest county-level city in the country, and the answer comes back almost instantly. Kunshan. The numbers seem to settle the debate. Kunshan's GDP is approaching $500 billion yuan, larger than that of many provincial capitals. It has topped the rankings of China's top 100 county-level cities for 21 consecutive years. It is a manufacturing powerhouse, a magnet for Taiwanese capital, and a critical node in the global electronics supply chain. But here is a counterintuitive proposition worth taking seriously. When you look beyond raw GDP figures and examine deeper indicators, urban hierarchy, industrial autonomy, global recognition, and the capacity to radiate influence outward, Kunshan may not actually be the most powerful county-level city in China. That title arguably belongs to a far less famous place. Yiwu, an unassuming city tucked into the hills of central Zhejiang province. The claim sounds strange at first. So over the next several minutes, let's walk through the data and the logic. Because the story of Kunshan and Yiwu is really the story of two completely different paths to prosperity in modern China, and a useful case study in how to measure a city's true economic standing. Start with Kunshan's success formula. Kunshan sits in the southeastern corner of Jiangsu province, directly adjacent to Shanghai. That geography is destiny. Beginning in the 80s and accelerating through the 90s, Kunshan made two decisive moves. It aggressively courted Taiwanese investment, and it integrated itself deeply into the industrial supply chains radiating out of Shanghai. The result was extraordinary. Foxconn, Compal, Quanta, Wistron, virtually every major Taiwanese electronics contract manufacturer set up large operations in Kunshan. At its peak, roughly 1 out of every 3 laptops produced anywhere in the world rolled off a Kunshan assembly line. But notice the underlying economic structure. Kunshan's industries are fundamentally a receiving economy. The orders originate with international brands. The technological standards are set elsewhere. Bulk of the profit accrues to upstream firms. Kunshan earns the margins of the assembly stage, significant in volume, but structurally dependent. More importantly, Kunshan's locational advantage flows downstream from Shanghai. Its development strategy is explicitly framed as integration into the Shanghai Metropolitan Circle and the Suzhou-Wuxi-Changzhou corridor. Within the Yangtze River Delta hierarchy, Kunshan functions as an indispensable transit hub between two larger urban centers, a high-quality component within someone else's system. That positioning sets a ceiling. The more Kunshan's economy grows, the more dependent it becomes on Shanghai and Suzhou. The more its industries upgrade, the more they rely on global brand orders and foreign technology. Kunshan's excellence is the excellence of a privileged inheritor. The silver spoon was there from the start. Now consider Yiwu. Yiwu's geography is the opposite of Kunshan's. It lies in mountainous central Zhejiang, with no major port, no proximity to a megacity like Shanghai, no obvious locational endowments. In the early days of China's reform era, Yiwu did not even have a modern railway connection of any real significance. And yet, from that unpromising starting point, Yiwu pursued a completely different path, building from nothing, constructing its own system, and ultimately writing its own rules. The origin story traces back to itinerant peddlers who walked from village to village, trading brown sugar for chicken feathers. It sounds primitive, almost agrarian. But that grassroots commercial culture gave rise to what would eventually become the world's largest small commodities marketplace. 4 decades later, Yiwu hosts more than 2 million distinct product varieties spanning over 24 major categories. Every day, thousands of containers leave Yiwu bound for markets around the world. Here is the critical figure. Yiwu's goods reach more than 230 countries and regions with an export-oriented market dependency exceeding 65%. The implication is significant. Yiwu is not merely one link in a global supply chain. It is a core node in the global small commodities trading network, a market maker, not a market taker. Travel abroad and ask a foreign buyer whether they know Yiwu. The response is often immediate. Yiwu, the world supermarket. Ask the same buyer about Kunshan, and you are likely to get a blank stare. That is the gap in international recognition. Kunshan is an anonymous workshop in someone else's supply chain. Technically sophisticated, but invisible to end users. Yiwu is a named node in the global trading system, a point of origin, a price setter, a participant in writing the rules of trade. Consider another dimension that often gets overlooked: urban hierarchy and the capacity to influence surrounding regions. In Zhejiang province's official urban planning framework, Yiwu occupies an unusual position. Although administratively classified as a county-level city, it is officially designated as a regional central city within the Yangtze River Delta, placed in the same tier as Hangzhou, Ningbo, and Wenzhou, to grasp what that means. Imagine a county executive being assigned responsibilities normally carried by a mayor or even a provincial-level party secretary. Yiwu is also one of two anchor nodes of the Jinyi metropolitan area, treated as an equal partner with the prefecture-level city of Jinhua. Far from being absorbed by its larger neighbor, Yiwu drives growth across Jinhua, Kuozhou, Lishui, and other surrounding regions. Phenomenon of a small administrative unit pulling a larger metropolitan area is genuinely rare in Chinese economic geography. Kunshan's official designation, by contrast, is consistent and unambiguous, a bridgehead through which Suzhou connects to Shanghai. The function is to receive radiation, not to project it. Strategic purpose is to serve the regional ambitions of its larger neighbors. One city is a passive recipient of resources. The other is an active center exporting influence. That gap in urban hierarchy is far wider than any GDP comparison can capture. Logistics is another telling indicator. Yiwu sits at the heart of a major east-west trade corridor connecting central China to the coastal ports of Ningbo and Zhoushan. It is one of the principal departure points for the China-Europe rail freight network, with regular trains running to destinations across Europe, Central Asia, and Southeast Asia. Yiwu has its own international airport, customs facilities, and a fully developed apparatus for international trade. Infrastructure typically associated with sub-provincial cities, not county-level units. Kunshan's trade volume is certainly enormous, but its logistics network is embedded within the much larger Shanghai-Suzhou system. It is a participant in someone else's network rather than the center of its own. A reasonable objection arises here. Doesn't GDP still matter? It does, but GDP measures total output, not output quality, and certainly not a city's structural position within the broader economy. True urban power involves at least four dimensions: total economic output and per capita levels, industrial autonomy and technological depth, global recognition and brand presence, and the capacity to radiate development outward to neighboring regions. On the first dimension, Kunshan leads. On the other three, Yiwu has the stronger case. The deeper difference lies in the development model itself. Kunshan rose by leveraging spillovers from Shanghai and waves of foreign direct investment, a highly efficient strategy, but one with a visible ceiling because the city's trajectory depends substantially on external conditions. Yiwu rose through bottom-up entrepreneurship and persistent institutional experimentation, from village barter to physical marketplaces, from domestic trade to international trade, from brick and mortar wholesale to cross-border e-commerce. The path was slower, but the foundations are deeper. Export orders can shift. Global supply chains can be rerouted. But a self-built commercial ecosystem, brand equity, and logistics network are far harder to displace. So which is the strongest county-level city in China? By GDP alone, the answer is Kunshan. By urban hierarchy, global influence, industrial autonomy, and regional radiation capacity, the answer points clearly toward Yiwu. Kunshan represents excellent execution. Yiwu represents original creation. Kunshan is a fortunate beneficiary of its era. Yiwu is a builder of new economic territory. Neither city is objectively superior, but they embody two fundamentally different logics of county-level development in China, and they offer two distinct visions of what the future might look like. Which model will prove more durable? That is the question worth watching and worth debating. Share your view in the comments. If this analysis was useful, consider subscribing for more deep dives into the economic geography shaping global markets.